Toya talks. Council estate to corporate space. First gen Nigerian setting the pace. From Goldman Sachs to PwC. Building legacies for all to see. Dyslexia couldn't stop this flow. Law degree, just watch me grow. Masters of the game we show. Every sister how to own their throne. TOIA, let me show you how to navigate and elevate, that's what we do. Black Queen, energy growing.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Toy Talks podcast, where we talk about all things workplace politics, black womanhood, culture, ambition, identity, and the realities that nobody really wants us to say out loud. This is a safe space for us to have such conversations. Now, today's episode is a little bit of an emergency episode because if you know how we do things over here, I typically aim to put out an episode every 2 weeks. However, as much as I was not planning to put out an episode, I couldn't not speak about what's happening at the moment and this whole conversation around Painted by Esther, Patrick Ta, and of course the backlash surrounding Jackie Aina. Now, for those of you who do not know what has happened, I will suggest that you go on social media, educate yourself, because in as much as I talk about topics and things like that, I think there's a requirement for us to also seek information, because you may have a different viewpoint to me, and it's really important that you hear from all sides. Me, I'm just giving my side, because my DMs have been lit. Like, Toya, you're going to do a podcast about this? Even on TikTok, I got a couple of messages like, Toya, what's your view? And at the risk of being blocked by Jackie Aina, I don't really give a fuck personally because she's on a blocking spree, but we can get into that a little later. Now, I think the reason this conversation has exploded in the way it has is because a lot of women are not just reacting as beauty consumers, we're also reacting from our own lived experience. So when I talk about lived experience, I'm also talking about workplace experience, creative industry experience, mentorship experience, and honestly, experiences of feeling unsupported, overlooked, or even just threatened by women who already had power in the room. So I really want to break this conversation down carefully, because I don't think this is about internet drama. And I hope it's not coming across like that when you're on social media trying to educate yourself. I think this situation symbolizes something much deeper about hierarchy, influence, gatekeeping, ego, legacy within black communities, specifically amongst black women. And before I continue, I just really want to say this clearly. This episode is not about attacking anybody. This is not a hate campaign. This is just an analysis. And you know how we do here. We break it down and we do deep dives. Because I honestly think that sometimes we struggle to have nuanced conversations once people become influential or successful. And let's first talk about the actual situation itself, okay? So Painted by Esther is an amazing makeup artist. She's amazing. And I'm going to be really real with you. I've seen a lot of her work, but I didn't know it was her. And now I've kind of done a deep dive into kind of what she does, her creativity. I'm honestly just really blown away. And also by her humility as well. And I think there's a lot to be said about success through grind and remaining down to earth. That level of humility comes from a space of struggle. And Painted by Esther has publicly shared her perspective, I believe on TikTok, regarding Patrick Ta, and what many people online feel is basically the commercial repackaging of an aesthetic or a technique that's closely associated to her content and her artistry and what she does. Now, legally, people will actually say, well, she didn't trademark, it wasn't patented. Can somebody own a makeup technique? I think that's the question. And technically, maybe not. But emotionally and culturally, that is not actually what people are reacting to. What people are reacting to is symbolism. Because as black women, we know that we have historically created culture aesthetics, trends, language, innovation, only for those things to become widely profitable. And once they pass through bigger institutions, they become more commercialized, and then they move through commercially protected spaces, or people with significantly more influence and resources then try to buy or obtain ownership of the aesthetic that as Black women have created. So when people like use words like colonization, and I use it here on the podcast, and for the purposes of this topic, I am using it. We're not necessarily speaking about legal terms. Like, we're speaking emotionally, we're speaking historically, and we're speaking from a space of extraction, where as Black women, we create first, but ownership somehow slips away once money and power enter the room. Because typically, once we're creating these things, that money machine is more than us. We are not the organizations, and we're not the money machines. We typically are creating from the ground up. So we don't have what we need from a resource perspective to protect what we're creating. And once money enters the room, our identity is literally stripped from us, and what we've created is stripped and repackaged. Hence why we use words like colonization when we're describing what's happened here with Painted by Esther and Patrick Ta. And this is why I think this conversation and what's happened over the last few days has really touched a nerve. Now, in saying that, I want to explain from how I see it from my perspective, okay? Before we move on to Jackie Aina. Patrick Ta has a history of not paying Black content creators, allegedly, not crediting Black content creators, allegedly. And it's been alleged that someone from his team actually tried to book a session, like a makeup session, like it was like a makeup and go session with Painted by Esther, and actually wanted to record her technique. She clocked very quickly what was going on and basically said, no, if you want for me to teach you, you pay for that, there's a package for that, but for me to do your makeup, for you to go, but you want to record what I'm doing, I'm not down for it. And that in itself is sneaky, underhand, if you like, only for Patrick Ta now to come out with a blush line that embodies Painted by Esther's technique. And then when he was doing like a masterclass, if you like, of her technique, he used every line, every word she said and then tried to basically make it his own, and then trademarked the technique, even though he knows that he did not create the technique. You see, I would have had more respect for Patrick Ta if he did a collaboration with Painted by Esther. But that's not how colonization works. It's the use and weaponization of money to colonize, to strip. And the fact that he gave no credit to Painted by Esther is not just telling, but it confirms what we as Black women already know. That they will copy, they will pillage, they will take, they will repackage, they will colonize, but never give credit to the origin of where that technique, where that thought, where that creativity came from. What I'm loving that's happening at the moment is the backlash that Patrick Ta is receiving. I'm enjoying it, yeah, and I'll tell you why. If you don't call this out, it continues. And the input that Black women have made in the industry becomes forgotten. And this is why I said, when you have the big corporations and you have money, it drowns out the creators who are creating from nothing. And it's not about even fairness at this point. It actually speaks to integrity. That's what it talks to. It speaks to integrity. Patrick Ta is continuing that nothing has happened. Because that is part of the strategy. When you colonize, you pretend like nothing has happened. And that in itself is gaslighting, by the way. because you're acting like nothing has happened. And this is why I say, as a community, both domestically and internationally, I wonder if we understand as a community our spending power, our ability to protest with our purses and our wallets, to say, we are not buying from you. You don't want a credit, we ain't buying. You want to steal and pillage, we ain't buying. You want a trademark, we ain't buying. You want to take, we ain't buying. You want to not credit, we ain't buying. You want to rob a creator, a innovator, somebody who has put in the work. You want to rob that person of credit and you want to take without recognition. We are not buying from you. And that needs to be the consequence of modern day colonization of our creativity. That's what needs to happen. So I have seen a lot of people online kind of throwing away their Patrick Ta products, but I will never ever buy from Patrick Ta. It's never going to happen. I don't like that whole idea where we have selective rage for the moment, and this is the problem. Because we don't follow through in consistency as a community, this is why someone like Patrick Ta will pretend like it's business as usual, because the reality is we will do the things, but it then becomes business as usual, because then it's almost like we forget, because I feel like sometimes we forget because some of us become superficial in our understanding of what this actually is. It's bigger than the beauty industry. It's bigger than a blush technique. This is about actual colonization and modern day colonization of an industry that we have fought to be a part of as well. We've fought to be recognized. We've had to have other innovators, other people like a Rihanna, like a Pat McGrath, that has to come in and say, actually, your color ranges, this doesn't represent like the range of women who actually buy this makeup, or the range of men that buy this makeup. We need a range of colors that includes us as Black women. We've had to have movers and shakers in an industry that never actually wanted to see us. And now we have people literally delivering substance and continue to innovate the industry. And then we have somebody who wants to come in and use money and weaponize money to strip a Black creator like Painted by Esther of acknowledging what she has done and what she has brought to the industry and continues to do. Patrick Ta is shameless. But we as a community, we as Black women, we as consumers need to be able to say, actually, this is where we draw the line. So let's see if we can hold the line. That's what I think is important. Now, let's move on to Jackie Aina. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying a couple of things. My spirit has never taken to Jackie Aina. It just never has done. I was never one of those people that watched her for makeup tips or kind of jumped on the bandwagon of her crusades. It's never been me. Now, I love how she has built her brand, holding makeup brands, holding cosmetic companies foot to the flame, you know, her being kind of a credible voice of recommendations, her reviews. I really respect how she's built her empire, but I don't like how she moves. She gives the energy. Anyway, we're going to explore her energy, but she has always given me very negative energy, simply because, listen, no one actually likes criticism. If you think about it, who actually sits there and says, I love to be critiqued? But constructive criticism, you have to be open to it, even if it's not delivered to your taste. Because if you really believe in growth and being a student of life, you have to understand that whilst not everybody's opinion is valid, people still have access to an opinion because you've built and predicated your business based on how people have consumed you, based on where people have placed you. If it wasn't for the people that support Jackie Aina, there would be no brand. The fact that she's been able to come out with her own signature candle line, makeup line, or whatever else she comes out with. I don't actually think she's got a makeup line, but even collaborations, it has been built off the backs of her supporters. So at some point, you're going to have to take a couple of steps away from the block button and be like, okay, you know what? I may not like this and I may be emotionally too sensitive to receive this, but if this is if this is the audience, if this is where I'm positioning my business, it comes with the territory. So I feel like Jackie Aina is receiving the backlash because I think it's where this conversation becomes uncomfortable for her. And I want to be really clear that I do not believe that anybody's obligated to speak about every issue online. And I don't think Jackie Aina is responsible to discuss every issue online. I really don't. However, I think audiences do develop expectations based on the platform that somebody has built. So Jackie Aina has built her brand based and her audiences help her get there. And I think Jackie Aina has built a significant part of her influence through advocacy, through calling out inequality, through holding brands accountable, and through speaking about the treatment of Black women within beauty spaces. So when situations arise where people feel like a Black woman is being negatively impacted, as painted by Esther has been, I think people naturally look towards voices who historically position themselves as advocates. Now, it's more than just Jackie Aina positioning herself as an advocate. I think it's Jackie Aina decided off her own back to pick up her camera and record. And she publicly went on the record to... And this is my view. I think that she has advocated, defended, and supported Patrick Ta, irrespective of what's happened. And silence was an option. Silence was an option. You know, sometimes you have to get to a point where you also know when not to speak. Like Jackie Aina, you could have just said nothing. Why did you hit the record button? Like, why? Where was the self-evaluation before the record? And this is where I think ego and arrogance plays a role in her decision-making here. But she decided, and I have watched the video, and I am going to watch it again. And I'll be watching it again because I still find it uncomfortable to think that she recorded that and edited that and thought, yep, that's going to go live, and that she thought it would land well. Like, are you so far up your own arse that you don't actually understand what we're talking about here? Or is your disdain for Juvia's Place so loud that you dislike Patrick, painted by Esther, as a proxy? Do you get what I mean? Because for those of you who don't know, obviously when Jackie Aina spoke about Patrick Ta and, you know, working with them and basically advocating for him, I don't know any other way to put it, she then speaks about Juvia's Place and goes on and on and on. And it just, there was no synergy. It doesn't make no sense. The only connection I can see between Painted by Esther and Juvia's Place is that Painted by Esther has spoken about Juvia's Place's products and really enjoyed their products. And there's been a lot of issues between Juvia's Place and Jackie Aina. That's got nothing to do with Painted by Esther. But because Painted by Esther has aligned herself with Juvia's Place for the pure fact that she enjoys their makeup, I think Jackie Aina feels slighted. So she's inadvertently justifying her defense of Patrick Ta because of who Painted by Esther has aligned herself with. It's immature, it's pathetic, and it's disappointing. Like, Jackie Aina, like, come on, babes. Like, and I don't even think you'd ever listen to this. But even if you were to, or someone sent this to you, it's not attacking you per se. It's attacking your behavior and your actions. Because ultimately, there comes a point where you have to be responsible for your own actions, especially in the space where you sit and the influence and the voice that you have. Now, I don't think anyone's angry that Jackie Aina didn't scream about Patrick Ta online. I think people are reacting because the energy feels inconsistent with the values people associated with her brands over the years. And however you want to cut it and shape it, perception matters, especially when your platform is built on community trust. And this is where I think this conversation gets deeper. A lot of women are projecting workplace experiences also into this situation, in my humble opinion, because many women have experienced environments where, now follow me here, Jackie Aina has taken offense to a lot of, like, we all know that she's a notorious blocker. There was a point where she hates being called auntie and she was blocking people for calling her auntie. And I feel like if you look at it on a deeper level, there are some women who maybe they have issues with getting older. And I hear it. Those are not my issues, honey, because for me, older is wiser, is finer, honey. But there are women, especially, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, I feel like Jackie Aina doesn't like the idea of being called auntie or referred to as that. Because even though she enjoys the privileges of being an OG, what it actually represents is that the younger generation coming through, and she sees it as a slight on her that auntie's aging her before she's ready to take on that auntie. Like, for her, it's like it's a no-go zone, hence why she was blocking people. And I think this also speaks to her trying to hold on to, it's less about youth in how we understand it, but it's more about holding on to relevance. And I think there's an association she associates with being called auntie, being older, and being out of touch with what is now, and her wanting to maintain, the state of us being current. And if you age her, if you kind of give her the auntie, if you kind of make her feel like old, then you are taking away her relevance. That's like, follow me here, because that's what, when I think about it, that's why I think she hates being called auntie. She's really spoken about it like with such, like, you can tell, like it bothers her, right? But then for me, I look at it as when I mention like the workplace experiences, I feel like there are women who, and I've been one of them, have experienced environments where there was like an older or more established woman who had the ability to, say, mentor, guide, encourage, or simply just coexist peacefully, but instead have become territorial. And I need us to really sit with that, because this dynamic exists everywhere, whether you're in corporate, creative industries, entertainment, beauty, media, and even friendship groups. The established woman versus the emerging woman. And I definitely feel that in this case with kind of Jackie Aina and Painted by Esther to a degree. And sometimes that it should be mentorship, but it becomes competition. And I think for a lot of women, watching this situation unfold reminds us of every time we've entered a room excited, talented, like being creative, youthful, hopeful, only to realize that there's somebody already established that's felt comfortable, that like who's felt uncomfortable with their presence, and instead of being inspired, feels threatened. And I posted this on my personal Instagram page. I feel that Jackie Aina is like, she reminds me of that. Like you have them older women in the workplace, and they just look at you like you're just a threat. They will sun you, kind of thing. They will make you feel like you're less than. It's almost like, how dare you come with that innovative, vivacious energy, and I've been here for a long time. You're not going to take from me. You're not going to overtake me. It gives that energy, because she doesn't want to be referred to as an auntie. Honey, you acting like one of them office aunties that refuses to understand that with age comes wisdom, that people are not trying to take your spot. Naturally, there is growth, there is elevation, and the cycle of life means that the young ones are going to come through. Being 41, I see it now, like the younger ones coming through, and it's exciting. It really is, because there's also a lot to learn. If you really believe you're a student of life, you have to then believe that you're able to learn from anyone. If you feel that threatened by the younger generation or the up and coming, the more youthful, it shows a lack of self-esteem and confidence in you. And I don't think that Jackie Aina is as confident as she plays to be. Because if she is, she would stand on the truth. Since you wanted to stand and you wanted to speak, you would have spoken honestly. And this is where Jackie Aina becomes disingenuous, because no matter how you cut it, peel it, shape it, flex it, Patrick Ta is wrong. It is wrong. He is wrong. And to take it a step further and painting or trademark like the technique is a step too far. Allegedly, he's done this, right? Because apparently it's still going through. But then, and Patrick Tar's not dumb. Imagine taking, because it's an attack. When you take from a black woman in the way that Patrick Tar has done, it becomes aggressive. And it's an attack. It's an attack on creativity. It's an attack on independence. It's an attack on our ability to stand in what we are creating. It's like it's daylight robbery at this point. Then to work with Patrick Tar and then push the same line that he's using to oppress Painted by Esther, then Jackie Aina becomes complicit in the act. And I don't think she's really thought it through. I don't think she's really done the analysis. Like when I come and I talk about a topic, I do a lot of research, because irrespective of where my view lands, I need to educate myself about what I'm talking about. Because for me, it's like if a brand approached me and wanted to work with me, even if it aligns with the ethos of what, I still have to research that brand. Have you done some questionable things against to or about my community? Where do you stand? Like what does your workforce look like about you want to work with me, but you don't have a diverse enough workforce, but you want to work with me? Oh, no, we just want to take from you, Toya, for tokenism, so that we can say when we speak about equal ops, oh, we've had this black woman, she's got this really good, successful podcast. Yeah, we've worked with her. We've had one black person work with us in 10 years, but Toya's come through and she's spoken to us, so we're still in touch. No, you're not going to use me in that way. And Patrick Tar used Jackie Aina as part of his takeover strategy, and Jackie Aina just lapped it up without a thought, and then decided to switch on her camera and just be yama, just talking. What's all of that? Jackie, girl. You know that you blocker. You're blocking your blessings by this stupidity, that you're doing. Because it doesn't. And people like that, I always wonder, yeah, who do you have around you that holds you accountable? Because you best believe, yeah, I have enough people around me that hold me motherfucking accountable. I couldn't even get close to be stupid like that. Sorry, Jackie Aina was stupid. Her behavior was stupid. It was. I'm not saying she's a stupid person. Her behavior was stupid. And it was stupid because she allowed someone with power and money to take from the very woman that looks exactly like her. And she allowed herself to be used against her own brand that she has built off the backs of holding people's foot to the flame, especially when it has been about protecting our community. Can you imagine? That's wild. That's actually very wild and very mad. When somebody wants to work with you on a beauty like Patrick, any brand, do you not do an audit? Do you not do an audit? I do an audit. But do you know how many? Listen, I am nowhere near compared to Jackie Aina. I'm micro, okay? But even in my micro status, I ask questions. You can't just have my voice and my face to something. And unfortunately, when I dig a little deep, 9 times out of 10, I'm just seeing something that's smelling. I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. I was actually approached a few months ago by a establishment that wanted to work with me. But unfortunately, I couldn't work with them because I'm originally from Tottenham. And if you know the history of Tottenham and how I grew up, unfortunately, that corporation is incompatible with the foundation of where I've come from. And I don't know how I could ever reconcile myself with a collab with them. It just wouldn't work because it's so deep rooted to the core of who I am and where I'm from that working with this corporation, it just wouldn't work. And I didn't even entertain it. And how they have attacked my community, how they have inadvertently attacked me, I just couldn't do it. And their checkbook was out. And I was like, I can't. Not every money is good money, by the way. And I'm sowing the seed of integrity. And integrity shall follow me all the days of my life. Like, it really be like that. And don't get it twisted. I understand people's viewpoints of this whole thing about, well, if you're trying to be a good person or you're doing integrity, all of this, you ain't going to get rich. Fair enough. But if I am going to get rich, the foundation has to be solid and it has to make sense. Not everybody's going to love me. Not everyone's going to like me. Not everyone's going to agree with me. But I need to be able to sleep at night, wake up in the morning, look at myself in the mirror and be comfortable with the reflection. And that's how I live my life. Like, I need to feel safe in my own decisions. And that I believe that comes from just me being comfortable in my own skin and being confident in who I am and what I believe and my belief systems. We're all going to make mistakes. But the problem with Jackie Aina is this is not an isolated mistake. We have many, many examples of Jackie Aina moving higgy-hagger. And it's not a misstep. It's not an accident. It's not unconscious. It's a conscious, willful behavior that has you questioning her as a person. Because without saying it, she inadvertently attacked Painted by Esther by supporting someone who took what doesn't belong to him to colonize that he had no right to. And you're a black woman watching that and you're sitting there doing that shit, supporting it. Silence is complicit too. And she's not saying it directly, but the inferences that she's making, and very consciously, we're not all stupid. In my head, I'm like, are you arrogant enough to think that that's okay? Like, it's just very odd and very weird. But what do I know? Now, I'm not saying Jackie Aina hates younger women, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that public figures eventually reach a point where people begin evaluating not just their success, but their legacy. And that to me is not only important, but for me, success says, what did you build? Like, legacy says, who benefited because you were there? And those are completely different conversations, because Jackie, when are you thinking about legacy here? Like, I don't get what motivates that type of behavior that she's been displaying, especially with related to Painted by Esther. And I think this is why people keep referring to Jackie as an OG, because being an OG is not just longevity. It's not just influence, and it definitely isn't just surviving in an industry for a long time. Being an OG is like being a steward. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is steward gatekeeper debate, but it means understanding what your position in the culture understanding your position in the culture, and understanding that your position in the culture actually carries weight. And it also, for me, stewardship in this regards, and me like viewing Jackie Aina as an OG, as a steward, it means also recognizing that people are not just observing your words. They're also observing your alignment, who you align yourself with, your energy, your support, your silences. Like, and like how you lean into emerging voices or emerging talent, like painted by Esther. And sometimes silence communicates something, even when that wasn't the intention. But in this situation, silence is a lot better than what Jackie Aina done and what Jackie Aina said. Now, something else I also want to touch on quite quickly is ego. Because I do think there comes a point where like a prolonged influence, status, visibility, wealth, and praise can create distance between people and communities, especially communities that first connected you to them. Do you know what I mean? Like how Jackie Aina is connected to the community and what she stood for and the things she advocated for. And I do see this a lot with public figures. And I feel like the audience begins to feel like, wait, you don't feel accessible anymore. You don't feel connected anymore. You don't feel like you're speaking to us anymore. You're speaking above us. And I want to also say that Jackie Aina doesn't owe us her voice, by the way. She doesn't owe us on situations that she must speak. That's not what we're saying. But if you're going to speak from a space of authenticity and truth. And again, perception matters. And when you combined perception with like blocking culture, being defensive, selective engagement, people start creating narratives around who they believe somebody has become. And once audiences emotionally disconnect from the creator, everything starts being interpreted through the lens of, oh, she thinks she's better than us. She thinks she's above the program. But I want also to be mature enough to acknowledge that Black women in positions of influence are also human too. And I acknowledge that. And I want us to give that grace of acknowledging that. Influence can harden people, especially when they've spent years being criticised, attacked, scrutinised, and expected to carry communities on their back. So I definitely understand like the weight of that. But heavy is the crown, Jackie. Heavy is the crown. This is not about demonizing Jackie Aina. And I'm not, for me, it's, I want us to have a deeper, wider conversation or apply some critical thinking to the topic. I definitely think, Jackie, I feel like she has forgotten where she started. Because I feel like Painted by Esther is a symbolism of where we start and could have been symbolic of where Jackie started. Even though I know Jackie's been through a lot, she's seen a lot, I get all that. But Jackie needs to be really careful because she holds, like even the Juvia's Place bit that she kind of launched into that had nothing to do with this topic, by the way. You can see that she holds on to that. And I'm gonna be really honest with you. And this is just me speaking as a 41-year-old woman. If you hold on to bitterness, like embody it, give it life, live in bitterness, it will drain you of blessings, it will aid you, and it will not advance you. Bitterness breeds anger, and anger breeds destruction. And it's scary to think that we're probably watching Jackie destroy something that she's worked so hard for purely because of anger and bitterness. I feel like people, when they think of anger and bitterness, like it depicts somebody like raging and screaming. It doesn't always manifest itself in that way. It can manifest itself in seemingly taking control of something, but actually just, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you think bitterness looks a certain way, it can just eat away at you until it slowly destroys you. And the problem with bitterness is it skews your ability to see clearly. Everything becomes foggy and hazy and you start moving crazy. You have to get to a point of just accepting certain things. Maybe she was wronged by Juvia's Place, but just because somebody uses Juvia's Place's makeup doesn't mean they're against you, Jackie. It just means they enjoy Juvia's Place's makeup. It's really just that. Not everybody has to get along. Not everybody has to get along. It's not like Painted by Esther and you are sisters, friends, sisters from another mister. This is a creator who is creating. And the worst part of it is where you feel you are, Jackie, you've lowered yourself to the point where now people are just rubbishing you on Kim Kardashian's internet. And you're looking stupid because you could not control your emotions and you allow anger and bitterness to possess you. That's the truth. And I'm speaking as somebody who has witnessed somebody in my life hold on to bitterness, and I'm watching it basically eat into and rob that person of joy. That to me is an example of where I never want to be in my life. And it's very easy to slip into that, especially when you're not being honest with yourself and the work you have to do. Like, I feel like happiness is one of those things that it's not a place, it's not a stage. Happiness is where you feel inside. Jackie doesn't strike me as somebody who's happy. If you're happy within yourself, you can stand in the truth and still feel confident in being honest. And she could have still spoken about Juvia's Place from a space of honesty. You know, she could have said, I don't really fuck with Painted by Esther because, yeah, there's an immature side of me that really, her aligning herself with Juvia's Place doesn't sit well with me because I still harbor resentment towards Juvia's Place in the way they treated me. However, in saying that, on the flip side, Patrick Ta, she could have given a more balanced. She went off on a 10. I feel like that where she went off on required a therapy couch session because that was wild. And actually, even though I don't like Jackie Aina like that, like my spirit doesn't take. I say I don't like her. I don't mean her as a person. I just don't like what she shows. Like there's something disingenuous about her. But what I do respect is the brand that she's built. What I don't respect is how she's single-handedly, like she's literally destroying her legacy. And I just don't get why. Why is there no one around her that's just telling her to stop? Like there'll be no accountability. I don't think she's in a space for her to be accountable, and because I genuinely think that Jackie thinks she's above the program, to be honest. And this is why I say we really need to think about how much support you throw onto someone without them demonstrating a level of humility as they grow into this space of abundance. That's just my view. Anyway, that's my perspective on the whole situation with Patrick Ta, Painted by Esther, and Jackie Aina. And I really want to hear your thoughts as well, because the conversation goes beyond beauty culture, I believe. Have you experienced this type of dynamic in the workplace? Do you think women become more territorial as they gain influence, or when they're in a place of influence and they see people maybe who are younger, more, vivacious and excited? Like, do you think that, do you think there is like that kind of threat there from somebody who may be an OG? I really want to have that conversation. Does the community hold people accountable once money and status and even ego enter the room? What are your thoughts on Painted by Esther and Patrick Ta, and how Jackie Aina has kind of surfaced in this conversation? But yeah, this was the emergency episode I wanted to deliver. And I hope I've broken it down in a way that people understand. Again, this is not an attack on Jackie Aina. This is just a perspective. It's a conversation. I've deliberately decided not to kind of post anything on TikTok just because I think people are saying the things. I think they're saying the things, and I don't feel like I need to add anything further. But I just wanted to use this podcast episode as more of a deep dive, more of a sit down, more of a conversation, because I definitely feel like we're able to have a conversation on the podcast that TikTok doesn't really allow for, because it's like a few minutes, couple of seconds. But I just wanted to sit in this conversation. But yeah, please, I'd love to hear your views. So wherever you listen to the podcast, please leave a comment. I really want to hear from people. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, where do you land on it? Like, those people who have been like massive supporters of Jackie Aina, like where do you stand in the conversation? I'm interested. Or if if you have a life dilemma, work dilemma, or even if you feel like, actually, I don't want to leave a comment here, I want to send you an email, Toya. Email hello@toyatalks.com, and in the subject box, whatever I'm going to name the title of this episode, maybe put that in the subject box. Anyway, and if you ever stumble accidentally on this podcast episode, Jackie, listen, this is not attack on you. Like I not everyone's going to like your brand. Not everybody likes my brand. I respect what you've done. I respect you as a businesswoman. Not everyone gonna like everything we do or like us. I don't know you personally, but maybe this is a learning moment. Because for me, it's a learning moment. I learn. I'm a student of life, honey. Anyway, follow me on social media, Toya_Washington, hello@toyatalks.com, and let's keep up the conversation. Thank you so much for listening. This is an impromptu emergency episode. This is not a full episode. Flash alert. This is not a full episode. This is just emergency episode. I will see you next week for a brand new deep dive episode on the Toy Talks podcast, where we cover several topics work related, anything that allows us to learn, grow, and adds to our knowledge. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.
TOIA, let me show you how to navigate and elevate. That's what we do. Black queen, energy growing, no fantasy, just real talk. From classroom dreams to boardroom walk. Black woman power, watch it shine. Breaking barriers, redesigning time. From Tottenham Roads to CEO, every step teaching what we know. Not just surviving, but thriving more. Opening every closed door. Toya Talks, Toya Talks, Toya Talks. Black queens to the top, and we're still going.